Hi. Does anyone else's cats love paper and will go to great lengths to lay on it, rub on it, destroy everything you're working on? Okay, so before we get started, I'm going to do singing bowl. Welcome everybody. Very exciting video today. Nice resonance. Welcome. Okay, so today, okay, I went to San Diego a couple weeks ago, about a week and a half ago, and I didn't get to do Balboa Park again, but I will put this out there for people. I looked up the racetrack in Del Mar because it also has a very old style design. So I looked a little into it, and I'm just saying I'm not gonna even tell you what it says because, like many of the other stuff, if you listen to the guy on my lunch break, I mean, I would like him to look into that because that's what he does. But very interesting. So anyways, what I did do while I was there was read. I did a ton of reading and research, y'all. Oh my gosh, it's so exciting. So I'm going to kind of lead you down the path I went down, and this will include the 9-day calendar. I'm excited to say some things I figured out. If you're on my Patreon, you saw a video already where I talk about, I'm going to do it. I said that there's a video on YouTube, but this is the one. We talk about the Ides of March and the Ides in general, because there's Ides every month, and it kind of helped define for me some things that I had said to you guys. So we'll kind of start with that. My last video, well, I'll lead you down the path, but my last video I talk about how I had figured something out about the new moon calendar and the 9-day calendar. Well, I said we had never learned about the 3 days of the new moon or the 2 to 3 days of the full moon. I was incorrect. We have been taught about it. We just haven't been given, at least I didn't know this. So if you've heard of the Ides of March, and we hear about it in the story of Caesar. Well, the Ides are specifically the 2 to 3 days of the new moon. Okay? That's what Ides mean. Let's see. Here we go. Okay. So March. The month of Mars once was the beginning of their year, meaning the Romans. Hence why the Ides of March were considered dangerous to kings 3 days of the new moon. The 3 days of the new moon. So we have been taught it, but I swear, well, not I swear, but I had not seen what the Ides were specifically. But the Ides are specifically when it's 3 days. But in my research I found this research in this amazing, wonderful book, The Women's Encyclopedia of Myths and Secrets. Now you see how I've got it all. It's ridiculous. I mean, oh my gosh. The amount of work that has been put into this, it's just amazing. Okay. So, hey y'all, by the way, I stand corrected, and the Ides of March are, oh wonderful, are related to the new moon, those 3 days. So, okay, so we're gonna talk about the calendar first. This whole time, I've been trying to figure out, like, how the moon calendar, the 9-day calendar, fits with the Gregorian calendar. Okay, well, I figured it out. We're going to go into that. There's so much about that. The calendar originally was based on women and the moon. All of it, even astrology. And so, when it comes to the 13 months, if you do 27 days, even if you do 28, because a lot of the research that I found, even in the Myths and Secrets, do 28. Now, the reason why I do 9 and I do 27, and then I break it down through that, is because my remembrance, or the messages I've gotten, are that 9 is the number. 9 is what the great mothers referred to. We didn't do 7. And with that, if you take 27, I will start that over. If you take 365 and you divide it by 27, you get 13.5 months. So we did have 13 months that are now squeezed into 12. It's all in the same year, but what ended up happening is when the patriarchal sun calendar, the Julian calendar, which is what it used to be, then became the Gregorian calendar, were based off of the original moon calendar and then changed to the sun calendar. So we're going to get into that. So we're also going to talk about the month of May because I said I was going to lead you down my rabbit hole. My rabbit hole was I was like, what are we going to read about today? I just kind of grabbed the book and decided, what are we going to read about today? And so I opened it up to May. I was born in May, and I was like, well, let's check out May. So I did, and I love it. I was like, of course. I've created classes on my Patreon, kind of the same classes that I took to get to the place to where I'm at, as far as like expressing, figuring out who I am, what deities I used to be, where I can come as far as like emotional, and then recognizing certain things. Okay. So in that, we talk about our birthdays. I don't ask you to give me your birthday. It's for you to look up and for you to check out. And so I was like, oh, let's check out May. That's the month I was born in. And also my name rearranged will spell May, right? Oh my gosh, y'all. So basically, May is the month of witches. May Eve, the last day of April. Blue paper over here. She's like, let me get in all the paper. Okay. May Eve is a whole big deal. And then also, you know how on St. Patrick's Day everybody wears green? That was originally a May thing, because it was this birthing time of year. So I'm just going to read some parts out of here. May Eve, okay, was the great springtime festival of witches, corresponding to Halloween at the opposite pole of the year. May Eve was known in Germany as Walpurgisnacht. Hey, is that I don't know if you all saw that video that was going around. I want to try to find that, where it's all these witches and they're doing this like dance and they're all dressed up. I hope I'm describing it well, but I feel like that's what it was called. Walpurgisnacht. Nacht. I think night. Nacht, I think, is night. Anyhow. That was in Germany, and Ireland and Scotland as Beltane or Beltane, and when the god Baal, or Bel, or Balder, was burned in effigy. So it's interesting because I'm learning that some of the name Baal has been misinterpreted. And I've been learning from watching another person on YouTube who talks about like Baal and how that became kind of like the patriarchal symbol. Well, according to this, that's true because that effigy was burned to kind of celebrate the witches of May. Okay. Let's see if there's another part. But it says the month of May, Maya or Maya, the virgin goddess of spring in Northern Europe, Maj or Mai, the maiden. This was the traditional month of wearing of the green in honor of the Earth Mother's new garment and of fornicating in plowed fields to encourage the crops. May was also the honeymoon of sexual freedom throughout rural Europe in the 16th century. Marriage bonds were temporarily in, I don't know what that means. I need to look at that word. Abeyance. The maxim that only bad women marry in the month of May probably was a relic of earlier taboos on all marriages during the month of license. So you could basically get married in May. Or no. Yeah, the month of license where you could kind of frolic and be. And then I'll just read the side note, but it goes on that the Queen of May is the legitimate representation of the goddess Flora in the Roman festival. That's where we get the maypole. There's so much. Let's see, where else did I? Okay. It says, naturally the church opposed any religious festival in May, but it is known as 1,000 years later the month was still given over to witches. I had no idea about this. I was so excited. I was like, that's right. I was born in May. That's right. And I've come to embrace the word witch because it has been so demonized. I know that's not what we called ourselves. We called ourselves Ma, Mother, Ma'am, Ma. We didn't call each other witches. But I'm okay with this kind of association. It just kind of blows my mind sometimes, like, where they go with things. But I'm going to read this little, I'm going to show you where I'm reading. I'm going to read this little excerpt. And if you have the book and you want to, check stuff out, this is on page 624. But in Scandinavia, May was dedicated to Maj, M-A-J, the Virgin, either Mary or the pagans, Virgin Mother, interchangeably. In Saxon England, the month was called Sproutkale, the sprouting of the Virgin Mother Earth, with her archaic Aryan name of Kali, Kelly, or Kali, or Kale. Kale, Kali. It's all, I say Kale, but it's probably Kali or Kale. Another name for the month was Trimilchi, improbably derived from the Venerable Bede, from a theory that the Saxon cows gave milk 3 times a day in May. Alternatively, it meant the triple goddess, appearance in the form of cows. I knew someone who called cows cosmic earth mothers, cosmic earth women, or something like that. COW, cosmic, earth mothers. Anyways, all right, so that's May, and that was just the beginning of my start. And then from May, oh gosh, I looked up dog and wolf, and the wolf, how much it relates to the Great Mother, how dogs relate to the Great Mother. Like, there's this whole thing where dogs are kind of given to men, like, oh, he's a dog. But actuality, a dog was exceptionally loyal and listened to the female. And even in packs of wolves and dogs, it's the female. It's an alpha female. And then it would be the alpha male assigned by the head wolf female. So where we get all these kind of sayings and stuff, my goodness, it is literally all little pieces from the Great Mother that have been like, okay, so this part, then we get, so then I went to the moon, because I can't remember, somewhere in there, I don't know, in May, it might have talked about a dog or something, but I started looking up the moon, and then the moon brought me to the menstrual calendar, which is ultimately where we're rounding into, because this is where I even discovered about the Ides, what are called the Ides. And the Ides are technically the 2 to 3 days of the new moon, dark moon, or the 2 to 3 days of the full moon. And we used to do all kinds of things around it. So when it comes to the moon, the Egyptian priests style the moon the mother of the universe. And I had a remembrance that the moon gave birth to the sun, and that the moon is far older than the sun. So if we do talk about like the great cosmic mother and birthing, wouldn't it make sense that something feminine gave birth to something that we have then? I feel like all circular things are originally feminine, including the planets, and that is also a remembrance I have been given, that all of the planets are female. And then through patriarchy and through the changing of our calendars, we've been given certain planets male aspects. But from what I remember, everything is female first. Right? So, okay. So when it comes to the moon, the mother of the universe, Upper Egypt used to be called Kemenu, land of the moon. And then I started relating all of this to the Americas, right? Because a lot of what we've been taught was over there, we're learning is actually here, the Americas. So I started thinking, is this like Arizona and Colorado? Anyhow, okay, or Utah. Worship of the heavenly bodies was always associated to the moon. Babylonians gave the moon precedence over the sun. I'm going to say Asian nations, even though it says Oriental in here, but we don't use that word anymore. Asian nations in general worship the moon before the sun. Moses, Maimonides, said moon worship was the religion of Adam. Okay? And the Gnostic sect of Nacians believed in a primordial being known as the heavenly horn of the moon. The moon was the eternal great mother. In Central Asia, it was said that the moon was the goddess's mirror, reflection, everything in the world, like the mirror of the Maya. And there are people who say that the moon literally is a reflection of the earth, and this is where a lot of people come up with like the flat earth theory, because supposedly the moon literally is supposed to be a direct reflection of this planet. We'll see, right? Who knows? Maybe. I mean, if the ancients used to say it, this is so exciting. I'm just remembering one because it's showing the side of the moon right there. So the crescent moon is also a huge big deal. The crescent. Did you all know? The crescent, that's what it means. It means crescent. It is a continued, because people used to make cakes and like breads dedicated to the crescent moon. the French still continue this with the croissant. And it's a whole, if you know about making a croissant, it's like layers and layers and layers of deliciousness of bread that I don't get to eat anymore. But it was work, and it's a specific shape, but that's what it refers to, the crescent moon. That's why it's called a croissant. Oh my gosh, okay. And so I have a star near this. They said that God created daylight before the sun and the moon. Oh, here's some scripture. It says, okay. Many savages, many savages revere the moon more than the sun, reasoning that the moon mother gives her light at night when it is needed, whereas the sun shines only by day. This belief presupposes that the sunlight and daylight are not the same, a common idea among primitives. That's just that's not her writing, that's somebody who wrote that, and she's quoting it. The writers of the Bible made the same mistake. They said God created daylight, before the sun and the moon, Genesis. The Ashanti people had a genetic term for all deities, Bouchon, meaning moon. Okay, and this goes on and on and on. I mean, I underlined a bunch of stuff. To the Greeks, Menos meant both moon and power. To the Romans, the morality of the moon goddess was superior to that of the sun god. The morality of the moon goddess, okay? And then Polynesians called the creatrix Hyena, meaning moon. To the Finnish people, the creatrix was Lunatar, Luna, the moon. And then this is in this one right here, it says the moon goddess created time with all its cycles of creation, growth, decline, and destruction, which is why ancient calendars were based on phases of the moon and menstrual cycles, which totally right. But I stayed here and finished reading. Oh, here's one of my favorite ones. Okay, so I looked some of this up. The Vedas say all souls return to the moon after death to be devoured by the maternal spirits. So this is where we get some of the interpretations that there's a man in the moon, because the ancient theories were that everybody returned back to the moon. Okay, then in Trobriand, this is a place. The Trobriand Islanders, which is near Papua New Guinea, I specifically looked that up, spoke these spirits as female sorcerers associated with the moon, eaters of the dead. The Maoris called the moon mother man-eater. Tartars, did we just read that? Did we just read the word Tartars, meaning Tartarians? Tartars of Central Asia worshipped the moon as Mama Allah, queen of life and death, said to be an eater of men. And Africans said the moon searched for men to devour. So this is where we get that, you see? Okay, there's so much. This is the part about, let's say, the croissants. Is this where it talks about the French croissant? Croissant? The crescent moon worn by Diana was used in worship of other goddesses and is said to be the ark or vessel, the boat-like shape, symbol of fertility, and the container of the germ of all life. And where's the so it goes into all aspects of the moon. All aspects of the moon. All shapes. Okay, here we go. Where's that? The moon was the special deity of women even during the Renaissance, when it was said that if women wanted anything, she should not ask God, but she should pray instead to the moon. Witches invoked their goddesses by drawing down the moon, a rite dating back to moon worshipping. Okay, the moon dew is said to be the first menstrual blood of girls gathering during the lunar eclipse. And let's see. That's it. St. Augustine. Wait. Oh, okay. So then it starts going into like making it to where we can't do stuff. When it came to the moon, and we'll see in the Bible where I think it's Isaiah, where he mentions something about women wearing the crescent moon, and like it, they're bad for wearing it. Okay, hold on. I'm going to pause this real quick. Yeah. Wearing the crescent was visible worship of the goddess. That is why the prophet Isaiah denounced the women of Zion for wearing lunar amulets. And this is where it goes into talking about the croissant. And so also the I checked on something. Babylon. Does that mean like baby lion? I don't know. Just kind of Zion. Also Amazon, Amun. That's another one. Amun, Zon. Somewhere in here I read that Amazon was related to the women who worshiped the moon and were part of Zion. So it was like Zion moon worshiping women. So that's another interesting connect. Let's see if there's anything else. Somewhere I said... Oh, okay. St. Augustine berated women for dancing impudently and filthily all the day long upon the days of the new moon. So remember how I called them like days out of time, but actually remembered that we used to do something during those days? That was it. Okay. And then this part, it moves into modern France. So Diana, and Diana is everywhere in all of this. It relates back to the Meridian, Mary, Diana. We'll get into that. But Diana is everywhere. Anyhow, in Gaul, the crescent moon stood for the Druidic Diana. Crescine meant to grow, a form of Latin create, and to produce, to create. So even crescent moon has the word create in it, crescent, right? So, hence the crescent, to create. And Gauls made communion cakes in crescent shapes. Modern France still makes them and calls them croissants, crescents, colloquially known as moon teeth. Okay, so then this took me down the, then I went to the menstrual calendar, and then after that, I went to matriarchal lineage. I mean, I spent a lot of time reading and researching. So what I did is I just took notes from the menstrual calendar because it relates to the moon. It relates to the 9-day calendar and our actual calendar. And it helps explain how we went from a 13 lunar calendar year, which fits in our 12-month year, to a 12-month year and becoming more patriarchal. And it actually kind of like messed up certain women traditions because they had been so on point with following the moon and the astrological movements of the moon that And the menstrual cycle, that when we started going to the Gregorian calendar, it actually messed up some of their kind of like connection, which we know was kind of part of the point. Okay. Wow, it's already been 30 minutes. It feels like it's only been 10. Okay. So, again, this is from the Women's Encyclopedia, and this is the menstrual calendar. So, there were two conflicting calendars through most of the Christian era in Europe and the churches. The official solar calendar, the Julian calendar, which we talked about, that also has a removal of a certain amount of days. I've literally read 10, 9, and 13, but the most that I see is today is removing 13 days to get to the Julian calendar. Anyhow, and the peasants' unofficial lunar goddess-given menstrual calendar. So also you hear like the peasants and the Christians, like it already is starting to separate out. Okay, the lunar 28 7-day, 4 7-day weeks, making a new waxing, full, and waning moon Sabbats. So what we now call the Sabbath, and has been given to Saturdays. And also, though I do a 9-day calendar, it is similar that on the 7th day of this 28-day calendar, they would not practice stuff. It was considered auspicious. So again, whether you're going by the planets and it's Uranus, or you're going by their old ancient calendar of 28 days, which like I said, 9, but this is the information. But the moons were the Sabbats. And this is also something I kind of figured out. So as I was relating to my classes on Patreon, one of the things that I discovered is there were certain women who their whole purpose was to figure out the calendar. Hi. So that's me reincarnated. Like, okay, one of my jobs is to figure out this calendar because Mother wants us to know her. And what the new calendar has done is really kind of, as we all know, right? If you're following me and you're following some of the people I'm talking about, you already are aware of this, okay? Chinese women established a lunar calendar 3,000 years ago, dividing the celestial sphere into 28 stellar mansions. So it's interesting because one of my friends and I were talking about today's Chinese calendar, which has 12. It didn't. It used to have 13 animals also. Okay? And they call them mansions, not just houses, but stellar mansions through which the moon passed. Not the sun, the moon. Okay? Among the Maya of Central America, every woman knew the great Maya calendar had first been based on her menstrual cycles. Romans called the calculation of Romans called the calculation of time menstruation, meaning knowledge of the menses. Gaelic words, menstruation and calendar are the same. Miasosh and Miosashan. Okay? The new moon Sabbats of ancient Latum were calends, possibly related to the Aryan name Kali. For fear of disappointing the goddesses, this part, traditions, activities of some kinds were forbidden on the 7th day of each lunar phase. Thus, Sabbats became unlucky or taboo. Because it was custom, even the biblical God was forced to rest on the 7th day. So that's where they got that from. I forgot about this part. Wow. And then we get into the names of, this is very interesting because in the video that's on YouTube, and it was made about 4 years ago, but when God was a black woman, they go into this part, okay? And she still is. She still is a black woman. The Egyptian god noon or noon, where we actually get the name noon from, or none, right? The meridian or high point of noon used to indicate the full moon overhead at midnight. And Mary Diana, Meridian, is the moon goddesses. They were the moon goddesses, Mary and Diana. And then I put very important by this part because I've been doing a video about Marduk, and I talked about how Marduk supposedly comes in and changes the constellations. Well, Marduk, a prototype of Yahweh, though he was patriarchal, he was still following his mother's lunar calendar, establishing holy days and seasons by the moon. By the moon. So there were 13 months. We've just crammed them into 12. There were like 13 and a half months, but we crammed them into 12. We focused on the sun. We took away the moon. And even though the sun has so much female qualities, it has been given a patriarchal construct, is the best way to describe that. Okay. In older traditions said the menstrual calendar was instituted in Babylon by the god Nabu Ramanani, the biblical Baal Ramanan, phallic deity united with the great mother's yoni in the form of a pomegranate. So this was supposed to be a combination connected to the moon. The Chinese explained their menstrual cycle with the myth of the holy calendar plant, Likikip, on which a pod grew for 14 days, then a pod would fall off for 14 days. When the months became confused with the solar months, they didn't say replaced, they said confused, okay? They added one day when a pod withered without falling off. So, plant connection there. Ancient Hebrews took their calendar from Shalandia, legendary home of Abraham, whose older name was Ab-Sin, meaning moon father. How many of y'all knew that? I didn't know that. I did not know this. And Ab-Sin, is that like Absu? When we're talking about like the husband of, or said spouse of Tiamat? I mean, I'm just saying. Okay. Anyways, Chaldeans were credited with the invention of astrology, now largely based on the sun. But Chaldeans didn't study the sun. They were moon worshippers, believing the moon determined the fates of men by her movements through various houses of the zodiac. This is also, okay, I'm getting to the Ides of March. The same lunar myths were found in Egypt, Northern Europe, Greece, and Rome. The 3 days of the dark moon are Ides. 3 days of the dark moon are Ides. Thank you, Encyclopedia. Okay, Greeks made offerings at the great Sabbath called Naumenia, meaning new moon. The other great Sabbath was Dichnomia, meaning full moon, when the goddess stood at the peak of her cycle. That was the full moon. Early attempts at calendar reform. So this was still based on the menses, right? Early attempts at calendar reform left Greek city-states quarreling amongst themselves, because it was so much easier to follow the moon, and it related to so many things. March, which I've already talked about, the month of March, which was the beginning of their year, I said the Roman year, hence the Ides of March were considered dangerous to kings, 3 days of the new moon. Amazon, Moon Scions, because wearing the crescent was visible worship of the goddess. That is why the prophet Isaiah already said this part. Ark of the vessel, and the same ark carried the gods to death or to life. Okay. Fear of moonlight. So this is interesting because I myself have heard this. Like, don't go out in the eclipse moon's light, and to avoid the full moon's light. Sometimes it could be bad luck. But without outside influences, are you kidding me? I love the full moon. I would go out in the full moon. I would watch the moon. I would talk to the moon. We'd have a whole conversation. And if you live out in the middle of nowhere, it's really fun. I mean, I don't suggest this if you're, but it was really fun you could turn off your headlights and you could still see everything. You see everything very clearly. And what is not in here, but I will tell you this, with anthropology as a background, when you start learning about the true hunter-gatherers were women, and we would predominantly do it at night. And so our eyesight actually improves at night. I know that I'm not talking about like driving with a bunch of lights coming towards you. That is hard. Or you have like rain reflections or reflection off your windshield. I'm not talking about that. But if you're walking around at night, even if there's not a full moon, the female's chemistry, it's almost like cat's eyes. Their eyesight changes to be able to see better at night. So that's interesting. Okay. Fear of moonlight. Semites feared the devouring old moon as Hindus devouring of Kalika. So the idea of like a devouring goddess, right? The Semitic Ima. So we have Ima, mother, and then they have Ima, which is terror. That's in Semitic language. Superstitious Christians sometimes refuse, I shouldn't say, well, this is what is in the book. But I don't think it's specifically Christians. I think it's other people too. Superstitious people and Christians sometimes refuse to sleep in the rays of the moon for fear of death. And there is I didn't write it down, but there's a saying in here and a poem in here from a Catholic preacher who basically goes into great length to explain that the moonlight will kill you. But what's interesting is, though this is talking about the menstrual calendar, it goes in to the moon, and it talks about how important the moon and the menstrual cycle went together. I found this so inspiring and so exciting. And so, do you want to know when the Ides of March are? So, my sister gave me this cool calendar. I think it was a gift to her, and it was somebody who made it. Rachel Howe, I think. I don't know if I ever met her, but she made this calendar. Astrology calendar. 2024. It's pretty cool. And in here she goes into, she like has like new moon in Pisces right here. And I like it because it's got a lot of open spaces and I can fill some stuff in. So I looked up when the new moon starts, which is next Friday, or this Friday, because today is Monday. This Friday the 8th. And then we have Saturday. So we have Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, the 8th, 9th, and 10th. Now, a lot of people think the 15th is the Ides of March. It probably will be again as the moon does her cycle. But this year, the Ides of March would be specifically the 8th, 9th, and 10th. So I have a live class scheduled next Saturday at 10 a.m. if anybody would like to join through Patreon. And right now I'm working on getting this channel monetized, where I will be able to kind of include that with you all. So big thank yous to everyone, to all of you who have shared, those of you who are supporting me through Patreon. And it's just been a cool ride to see how speaking about the mother and bringing this information has just like taken off recently. It's this last year and this year, like, oh my gosh, that's so exciting. Okay, so before I get off, I want to pull a card for you all out of my awesome deck, Sacred Mothers and Goddesses. Man, I mean, there's still so much more information I wanted to share with you all, but I really wanted to bring a kind of a conclusion or a solidification of what I had talked about as far as figuring out starting the month at the end of the... And wouldn't that make sense? If we were afraid, especially the male rulers, if they were afraid of things like the Ides of March or the Ides of the month, we wouldn't start a month on those days. We would start after, right? Because you wouldn't want to even include those days in the month according to these kind of like fear-mongering ideas of the moon. But I think that all comes back to kind of the I would say pushed on us, or like, what's the best word? The way that we're taught the calendars and stuff. But wouldn't it make sense, like, if the patriarchs were the ones who were like afraid of the Ides of March, which is the divine dark, or I want to say dark. I don't mean bad. I mean dark mother. I mean the good, like nighttime. So we go into the 3 dark days of the moon. That is a representation. It's, as far as like overall conclusion that I've come to, is a representation of the literal dark mother, Kali Ma, Tiamat, Diana, whichever goddess, when she is in her truly like mystical, magical time. And that the moon in general has always been a source of light at night and guidance, and definitely holds a motherly energy. I think they both do, the sun and the moon. But ultimately the earth is our first mother, our first known mother, besides our mother who gives birth to us, the earth, and so these are all connected to this planet that we're on, so that must be important. This is a living being that we're on. So, okay, Sacred Mothers and Goddesses. So I just pulled some for my Patreon group. So here's the deck. I'm going to cut it. Okay. And then I'm going to shuffle. Oh my gosh. I don't know about you all, but we had so much snow. We had snow days. Some awesome snow day. We still have snow, but not as heavy. And where I grew up, we didn't get snow like this. So I think it's kind of fun. Sometimes, like when I can't go to work, like yesterday, I wasn't able to go to work. It's annoying, but what I've learned is that Great Mother is always kind of taking care of me. And so though it was the weather, it was necessary because the work that I do, it requires a lot of energy. So it was nice to kind of focus on something different. Anyhow. All right. One more shuffle. Hopefully you heard that shuffling in the background. Okay. And then what I like to do, because I'm on this, I like to show you guys kind of this way. Let's see. Let's spread these out a little better. Right here. do we get? Venus, right? No, Vesna. Awakening and victory. Vesna. I don't know her. Let's learn about her. Okay, Vesna. I bet she's in the Women's Encyclopedia of Myths and Secrets as well. Okay, and then we'll look at the bottom of the deck as well. Okay. Vesna, awakening and victory. This is so pretty. Look, I was just talking about Earth. I'm sure it's going to relate. It always does. Okay. Let's see what she has to say. 32, which is a 5. And so I haven't done this in a long time, but I'll include it. So 5 to me relates to the body. And so we'll see. We'll see what she has to say. Okay. Vesna is one of the most well-known Slavic goddesses, particularly in Siberia and Slovenia. Her name means messenger, but the word Vesna originates from Sanskrit meaning illuminated and shiny. Are they going to tell us she relates to the moon as well? Okay. She is a fertility goddess who brought renewal, spring to the Slavs, awakening the land to warmer weather and a bountiful life of fruits and flowers. After her counterpart, Morana, goddess of darkness and death, took her leave at the end of winter. Vesna is also known as a goddess of victory, as she overcame death and darkness to awaken the land. The Slavs used rituals to quicken Vesna's return, most popularly the burning of Morana. As winter came to an end, they made wooden or rag straw dolls that symbolized Morana. The dolls were then set on fire, then drowned in a river to return Morana to the underworld. To awaken and welcome Vesna back into the land, they made small clay larks, which were placed on sticks and wrapped with herbs and flowers. Oh, I want to share that with you guys too. That's a long... Her story is long. We have a lot of catching up to do on the Great Mother, so I'll just keep that in mind. All right. Vesna's message. Victory has come or is on its way. Stay on course and focus on your role. Allow things to blossom in their season. Even though you fall back into your old ways of thinking at times, you are awakening and starting to see things differently. Keep focusing on this new vision. As you continue to grow from a tight bud into your fully flowering awakening, help will be given so you see life, the universe, as it really is. Like the gradual opening of the third eye, opening and blooming after winter, awakening to the knowledge that you are a sacred being. So you can call on Vesna when you feel confused, if you're feeling stuck, lack of direction, and need clarity and light on your path, to help you awaken to your true purpose and passion in life, when suffering has lingered for too long in your life and you are ready for a victory. Activities and rituals, and you know how I feel about this. I believe in spontaneity, but I like to share this with you all anyways. Ask Vesna to help awaken positive feelings inside of you. Meditate on the feelings and sights in your heart and your mind's eye. Focus your energy on the light waiting to expand within you. Allow the life force to awaken every part that has been neglected. Suppressed and forgotten. Feel your power as you continue to shift into a new and awakened self. Remember that life is a cycle. Continue your growth from season to season with every challenge encountered, and do not allow anyone to steal away your peace and vitality. Yeah, don't let that happen. Create a lark out of air drying clay. Decorate it with flowers and herbs and place it on your altar. Is this a lark like a bird? A lark is a bird, right? Yeah, a messenger. Okay. Okay. And then objects would be white or pastel colored altar cloth, white. I feel like she does kind of relate to this moon. Maybe I need to do a little more research on her. Fruits and flowers. So clay figurines, butterflies, eggs, and nests. This is very similar to kind of like springtime coming, right? Larks, cranes, owls, duck, geese, other birds. Fruits and flowers are apricots, apples, berries, and birdseed. Incense and scented oils would be Palo Santo, sandalwood, rosewood, vetiver, vetiver, sage, copal, eucalyptus, cinnamon, orange, and grapefruit. Stones and crystals, clear quartz, lapis lazuli, moonstone, carnelian, kyanite, solidite, red jasper, amethyst, pyramorphite, chrysanthemum stone, which is also called also called the desert stone, which looks like this. But I could be wrong. I think that's it. And blue and purple fluorite. Okay, and then on the bottom of the deck, which is usually the conclusion, is a butterfly maiden, openness and renewal. And look, she's looking at the moon. All right. So the butterfly maiden, that would be after, we're always kind of moving and flowing through our own learnings and connections to the Great Mother. So I feel like these are all kind of showing us how we move through the knowledge, through our own knowing and getting to know ourselves. Okay, butterfly maiden, openness and renewal. The goddess is found in many native traditions throughout the Americas. She is associated with renewal, transformation, beauty, fertility, rebirth, freedom, and springtime. Interesting. The Hopi and the Zuni Indians, people of North America, make beautiful wooden sculptures called kachinas to represent the butterfly maiden. Girls braid their hair into wings on top of their heads to represent the wings of the butterfly as they perform dances in her honor. Those are also traditionally our hairstyles, okay? In Mexico, the goddess of butterflies is Itzpapalaot. Itzpapalotzo. She covers herself with an invisibility cloak to avoid the attention of those who are envious of her beauty and power of eternal regeneration. Okay, so that's where I'm ending that part. But this is for transformation and growth. So we're on it. We're on both of these. We are awakening. This is what we're doing, and then of course it's going to bring openness and renewal as we practice this. And I'll post some pictures in the community and a little bit more descriptions for anyone who's interested and might want to bring some of this energy into their own personal lives. Okay, this is a long video, way longer than I thought it was going to be. So I really appreciate you listening, sticking through with it, and feel free to share any more information or side note things you might have gleaned in your own research and your own stuff. All right. May you be favored. Have a favoring day. May magic find you. Until the next time, take care.